Judge Sarah Chen's heels clicked against the marble floor as she made her way through the courthouse's grand hallway. The morning light filtered through the towering windows, casting long shadows that danced across the walls, adorned with portraits of previous judges. At 42, she had earned her place among them, though her path had been anything but traditional. She paused at her chamber door. Juggling her leather briefcase and the green tea latte, she treated herself to after dropping Emma at school. Her daughter had been especially clingy this morning, and Sarah couldn't shake the image of those small arms wrapped around her waist, begging for 5 more minutes together. "Good morning, Your Honor." Her clerk, Michael, greeted her with his usual efficiency. He held a stack of files that would define the day ahead. 20 cases on the docket today. The first one's a bit interesting. Sarah raised an eyebrow as she settled into her chair, the familiar leather creaking softly. "Interesting how, Michael?" "Well, it's a simple traffic violation, but the defendant has requested to speak directly to the court. No lawyer." He submitted a rather detailed written statement. Michael handed her the top file, dog-eared from what appeared to be multiple reviews. As Sarah flipped through the pages, her phone buzzed. Emma's school. Her heart skipped a beat before she read the message. Emma earned Student of the Week in Mathematics. A proud smile crossed her face as she thought of her daughter's recent dedication to improving her grades. The morning sunlight strengthened, warming her black robes as she reviewed the case files. The courthouse was coming alive around her. The distant murmur of voices, the shuffle of papers, the soft ding of the elevator, delivering more people seeking justice, mercy, or something in between. Sarah checked her watch. A delicate silver piece that had belonged to her mother, another strong woman who'd balanced career and family. She had 15 minutes before court began. Just enough time to review the first case's details one more time. The defendant's handwritten statement caught her attention. Unlike the usual hastily scrawled excuses, this one was carefully penned in precise handwriting. The paper showed signs of being erased and rewritten, as if each word had been carefully chosen. 20 years on the bench had taught her that details like these often spoke louder than the words themselves. "Your Honor," Michael interrupted her thoughts. "Officers Martinez and Chen are here about the Thompson case scheduling." Sarah nodded, reluctantly closing the file. "Give me 2 minutes to finish my tea." She turned to the window, watching as people climbed the courthouse steps below. Each person had a story, a reason for being here. Some sought justice, others redemption, and many simply needed someone to listen. The morning light caught her nameplate, Judge Sarah Chen, Superior Court. Some days, the weight of that title felt heavier than others. Today, something in the air, perhaps the way the light fell, or the careful handwriting in that file, suggested this wouldn't be just another Tuesday in court. She straightened her robes, checked her reflection in the window, and took a deep breath. The day's first case awaited, and with it, an unexpected turn of events that would remind her why she'd chosen this path in the first place. The courtroom fell silent as Marcus Thompson's name echoed through the chamber. He rose slowly from the wooden bench, his work uniform pressed despite its age. The dawn shift's first rays had barely broken when he'd taken an iron to it, determined to present his best self to the court. Case number 2473, traffic citation for expired registration and equipment violation, the clerk announced, his voice carrying through the hushed room. Judge Chen observed Thompson as he approached the podium. His shoes, though worn, were polished to a shine. His delivery service uniform bore yesterday's date on the badge, suggesting he'd come straight from his night shift. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, yet they held a clear, steady gaze. "Mr. Thompson," Judge Chen began, noting how he stood perfectly straight despite his obvious fatigue, "you've chosen to represent yourself today." "Yes, Your Honor." His voice carried a quiet strength. From his pocket, he withdrew a carefully folded paper, smoothing it on the podium with hands that showed years of manual labor. "I've prepared a statement, if I may." Judge Chen nodded, intrigued by his methodical approach. Most traffic cases rushed through explanations, eager to minimize fines and leave. Thompson's deliberate manner suggested something different. 3 months ago, he began, his finger marking each line as he read. My vehicle's registration expired. I was aware of this. He paused, swallowing hard. The taillight broke 2 weeks later. I purchased a replacement bulb, but... He reached into his other pocket, producing a receipt. He discovered the wiring needed professional repair. A baby's cry pierced the courtroom silence. Thompson's eyes darted to the back where a young mother struggled to quiet her child. His expression softened momentarily before returning to his statement. I had to make a choice, Your Honor. The repair shop quoted $380 for the wiring. That same week, my youngest needed new glasses. He placed a second receipt beside the first. I chose his vision over my vehicle's compliance, knowing it was still against the law. Judge Chen studied the receipts he presented. Each document told a story of careful budgeting, itemized expenses, calculations in the margins, payment plans circled and noted. This wasn't carelessness, it was calculated priority. My work schedule, Thompson continued, producing a crumpled timesheet, shows I make deliveries from 4 a.m. to noon, followed by my second job from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. The auto shop's hours. His voice trailed off as he searched his papers for another document. Mr. Thompson, Judge Chen interrupted gently. Your documentation is quite thorough. However, I'm curious. Why not take a day off for repairs? His shoulders tensed slightly. Every hour matters, Your Honor. Single income, 3 children. He straightened a paper that didn't need straightening. My oldest starts college next fall. He cleared his throat. We're making it work. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Judge Chen processed his words. In 15 years on the bench, she heard countless excuses. This wasn't one of them. This was a man documenting his impossible choices, not to escape responsibility, but to explain his path to standing before her. The young mother in the back finally soothed her baby. Thompson's eyes flickered there again, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. Judge Chen noticed, adding this small detail to the growing portrait of the man before her. Judge Chen adjusted her reading glasses, taking a deliberate moment to review Thompson's meticulously prepared documents. The courtroom remained still, heavy with anticipation. Through the tall windows, clouds shifted, temporarily dimming the morning light that had been streaming onto her bench. Her eyes lingered on the receipt for his child's glasses, $347.50, with a payment plan circled in careful blue ink. Next to it, she noticed small numerical calculations, presumably worked out during breaks between his shifts. The attention to detail in his financial planning spoke volumes. Mr. Thompson, she began, removing her glasses, the law is quite clear regarding vehicle registration and safety equipment. She watched his expression remain steady, though his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on the podium's edge. These regulations exist for public safety, not merely administrative convenience. A slight movement caught her eye. In the gallery, the young mother from earlier was gathering her things, her now sleeping baby nestled against her shoulder. Thompson's gaze followed her too, and Judge Chen noticed how he shifted slightly, as if resisting an ingrained instinct to help someone with their belongings. However, she continued, the court also has an obligation to consider all relevant circumstances. She picked up his work schedule, noting the impossible hours. No wasted time, no gaps for rest, just continuous movement between responsibilities. You've presented a thorough accounting of your situation. The clock ticked steadily on the wall behind her. Each passing second seemed to carry the weight of consequence. Her clerk, Michael, was already preparing the standard fine documents, but she held up a hand to pause his efficient processing. The minimum fine for these violations is typically $500. She watched Thompson's shoulders tense, his hand moving toward the pocket where he kept his carefully organized payment calculations. But the court has some discretion in special circumstances. She thought of her own daughter, Emma, and the recent note about her improving math grades. Behind every child's success was a foundation of support, sometimes built through sacrifices invisible to the world. Thompson's careful prioritizing of his child's glasses over his car's repairs echoed with its own mathematical clarity. "The court sets your fine at $300, she declared, noting how Thompson released a carefully held breath. "Furthermore, you'll have 30 days to complete the repairs and submit proof to the court." She paused, making sure to meet his eyes. "The clerk's office has information about certified repair shops that offer payment plans." Thompson nodded, already reaching for his small notebook to write down the details. The same notebook, she noticed, that contained all his budget calculations. Additionally, she added, causing him to look up, pen poised, "The court's financial aid office can provide information about programs that might be relevant to your situation." She gestured toward Michael, who was already preparing the appropriate paperwork. "They're open until 6 p.m. today." "Thank you, Your Honor," Thompson replied, his voice steady but relief evident in his posture. He carefully gathered his documents, arranging them in the same precise order he presented them. As he turned to leave, Judge Chen noticed something she'd missed earlier, a small badge partially hidden under his work ID. It looked like a volunteer pin, but he moved too quickly for her to read it. The detail nagged at her, like a puzzle piece that suggested a larger picture. "Next case," she called, but her thoughts lingered on Thompson's careful documentation and that glimpse of a hidden pin. In 15 years on the bench, she learned that the most interesting stories often lay in these small, overlooked details. The Sweet Dreams Learning Center glowed like a beacon in the early evening darkness. Judge Chen pulled into the parking lot at 6:45 p.m., 15 minutes later than usual. The day's cases had run long, each one demanding its own measure of attention and justice. Now, all she wanted was to hug Emma and head home for a quiet dinner. Rain droplets tapped against her windshield as she gathered her belongings. Through the center's large windows, she could see children engaged in various activities, some drawing, others reading, a few playing educational board games. Emma would be in the homework room, probably working on her latest math assignment. As she approached the entrance, a familiar delivery service van caught her eye. It was parked in the staff section, its dented fender and recently repaired taillight triggering her memory. Could it be? She shook her head, dismissing the coincidence. The center's warm air enveloped her as she stepped inside, carrying the scent of crayons and children's snacks. Miss Laura, the front desk coordinator, greeted her with a knowing smile. "Emma's having quite the breakthrough with fractions today, Judge Chen. Mr. Marcus has a way of making them click." Before she could inquire about this Mr. Marcus, laughter erupted from the homework room. Curious, she walked down the brightly decorated hallway, student artwork lining the walls. As she approached, she heard a familiar voice. "Okay, pizza masters, if we cut our pizza into 8 slices, and Jenny eats 3 slices while Miguel eats 2, what fraction of the pizza is left?" The voice was warmer, more animated than she remembered from court, but unmistakably belonged to Marcus Thompson. She peered through the doorway. Thompson sat at a round table surrounded by 5 children, including Emma. He changed from his delivery uniform into a blue polo shirt with the Learning Center's logo. A whiteboard beside him displayed a perfectly drawn pizza, divided into precise sections. 3/8. Emma's hand shot up, her face beaming with confidence. Judge Chen felt her heart swell. Math had always been her daughter's greatest challenge. "Excellent." Thompson high-fived Emma, then turned the problem more challenging. "Now, if we wanted to share those 3/8 equally between Sam and Lisa, what fraction would each get?" Judge Chen watched in amazement as Thompson guided the children through the problem. His teaching style was patient yet engaging, using real-world examples that kept the students interested. Gone was the exhausted man from her courtroom, replaced by an energetic educator who seemed to know exactly how to reach each child. She noticed his notebook, the same one from court, sitting on a nearby desk. But now it was open to pages of teaching notes, fraction problems, and student progress reports, all written in that same careful handwriting. A small boy struggled with dividing the leftover pizza slices. Thompson knelt beside him, speaking softly. Remember how we used the pizza cutter at the school fair last week, Carlos? It's just like that. One smooth line right through the middle. The boy's face lit up with understanding. Judge Chen stepped back into the hallway, not wanting to interrupt the lesson. Through the door's window, she watched Thompson gather supplies for their next activity. His movements were tired but purposeful, every action focused on his students' needs. The volunteer pin she glimpsed earlier was now fully visible. 5 years of service, Sweet Dreams Learning Center. 5 years of evening lessons after full days of deliveries. 5 years of choosing to spend his precious free hours helping children understand the math that would shape their futures. The following week, Judge Chen arrived early to pick up Emma, her curiosity about Marcus Thompson's role at the center growing with each passing day. She found Miss Laura organizing attendance sheets at the front desk, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the windows. Emma's still finishing up her math worksheet. Miss Laura smiled. She's really blossoming in Mr. Marcus's group. She shuffled through some papers, pulling out a progress report. Look at her scores from last month compared to now. Judge Chen studied the chart, noting the steady upward trend in Emma's grades. Her daughter had gone from struggling with basic concepts to confidently tackling complex problems. How long has Mr. Marcus been teaching math here? Oh, that's quite a story. Miss Laura's eyes lit up. He started as a parent volunteer when his oldest was struggling with algebra. That was 5 years ago. Now his teaching method has become our gold standard. She reached beneath her desk and pulled out a thick binder labeled Math Magic Success Stories. Inside, dozens of letters from parents filled the pages. Judge Chen read them one by one, her judicial composure wavering at their heartfelt words. A single mother wrote about her son getting into advanced placement classes. A grandfather described his granddaughter's newfound confidence. Each letter spoke of transformation, of hope restored through patient teaching. From the homework room came the sound of children chanting, "Pizza parts are fraction arts," a learning rhyme she heard Emma practicing at home. Through the door's window, she watched Thompson guide his students through another creative lesson. He developed that pizza method himself, a voice said behind her. Mrs. Rodriguez, the center's director, had joined them quietly. The children remember fractions better when they can relate them to real life. Last month, he organized a pizza party where they practiced dividing different toppings. The parents were amazed at how quickly the concept stuck. And he does this every evening. Judge Chen asked, remembering his exhausting work schedule. Rain or shine, Mrs. Rodriguez nodded, even on days when he's clearly exhausted from his delivery routes. Last winter, during that terrible snowstorm, he walked 2 miles to get here because his car wouldn't start. Said he couldn't let the kids down before their math test. A bulletin board nearby caught Judge Chen's attention. Photos showed Thompson at various center events, helping at a science fair, serving food at a fundraiser, celebrating students' achievements. In every image, despite his obvious fatigue, his eyes held the same passionate spark she'd seen in the homework room. The remarkable thing, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, is how he uses his delivery job to teach. He brings in real-world math problems from his routes, calculating distances, managing time schedules, planning delivery sequences. The children love solving Mr. Marcus's daily delivery dilemmas. Just then, Emma burst from the homework room, clutching a paper with a bright red A marked at the top. "Mom, look what I got on my fractions test." Her face glowed with pride as she explained how Mr. Marcus's pizza method had helped her understand the concepts. Behind Emma, Thompson was packing up his teaching materials, carefully filing student papers into his worn notebook. Judge Chen watched as he paused to write something in the margins, probably notes for tomorrow's lesson, squeezed in between his delivery schedule and budget calculations. She realized that the man she'd find in court wasn't just making the best of difficult circumstances. He was quietly changing lives, one math lesson at a time. After another successful math session, Judge Chen found herself sitting across from Mrs. Rodriguez in her small office. The walls were covered with children's artwork, their bright colors contrasting with the serious expression on the director's face as she pulled out a thick folder. Marcus Thompson's story isn't mine to tell, Mrs. Rodriguez began, touching the folder gently. But given your position and your genuine interest in his work here, I think you should understand the full picture. She opened the folder, revealing newspaper clippings from 5 years ago. The first article showed a younger Thompson in a suit and tie, accepting a Teacher of the Year award at Brighton Heights Academy, one of the city's most prestigious private schools. His smile was the same one he now shared with the Learning Center students, but his eyes held none of the weariness she'd come to recognize. He taught advanced mathematics there for 12 years, Mrs. Rodriguez explained, sliding another article across the desk. This one was darker. A fundraiser announcement for a beloved teacher's wife battling an aggressive illness. Grace Thompson's photo showed a beautiful woman surrounded by students, her husband's arm protectively around her shoulders. They had the best insurance plan the school offered, Mrs. Rodriguez continued softly. But Grace's condition required experimental treatments. Insurance wouldn't cover them. She paused, allowing Judge Chen to read between the lines. Marcus resigned from his teaching position to take multiple jobs with better overtime opportunities. The delivery service offered night shifts and flexible hours. Through the office window, they could see Thompson helping a student pack up his backpack, taking time to ensure every book and paper found its proper place. The setting sun cast long shadows across the homework room, marking the end of another long day for him. Grace passed away 3 years ago. Mrs. Rodriguez's voice wavered slightly, but not before seeing their oldest daughter accepted to college. Marcus had promised her their children's education wouldn't suffer, no matter what. Judge Chen thought of the careful calculations in Thompson's notebook, the precise documentation of every expense. Each number represented a promise kept, a dream preserved through countless sacrifices. He started here during Grace's treatment. Mrs. Rodriguez gestured to a photo on her wall. Thompson in his delivery uniform, surrounded by smiling children. His youngest was struggling with math, anxiety from everything happening at home. We had a volunteer program, and Marcus asked if he could help for an hour after his delivery shift. She pulled out a chart showing the center's math scores over the past 5 years. The upward trend was unmistakable. 1 hour became 2, then 3. Other parents started requesting him specifically. He has this gift for making difficult concepts simple, for helping children believe in themselves. A knock at the door interrupted them. Thompson stood there, his delivery uniform now on, ready for his night shift. Mrs. R. Carlos mastered long division today. Could we get some extra practice sheets for him tomorrow? I noticed. He stopped, seeing Judge Chen. For a moment, the confident teacher disappeared, replaced by the cautious man from her courtroom. But Mrs. Rodriguez smiled warmly. Marcus, Judge Chen was just learning about your math magic program. Her daughter Emma has made remarkable progress. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly, and that familiar teaching spark returned to his eyes. Emma has a natural talent for patterns. She just needed to see math as a story instead of just numbers. Judge Chen sat in her office early Friday morning, her desk covered with business cards and notes from a week of careful phone calls. The sunrise painted the room in soft golden hues as she reviewed her plan one final time. Her morning schedule had been cleared, thanks to Michael's discreet rearranging of the docket. A gentle knock announced the arrival of her first appointment. James Mitchell, dean of the local community college's education department, entered with a portfolio under his arm. Behind him came Lisa Torres from the Education Foundation, followed by Robert Chen, no relation, owner of Valley Auto Repair. Thank you all for coming so early. Judge Chen began, gesturing to the conference table where coffee and pastries waited. I've asked you here to discuss an extraordinary educator who's currently delivering packages instead of teaching calculus. She shared Thompson's story, carefully omitting any details from his core appearance. Instead, she focused on his impact at Sweet Dreams Learning Center, his innovative teaching methods, and his dedication to education despite personal hardships. As she spoke, Mrs. Rodriguez's documentation circulated among the visitors. Remarkable results, Dean Mitchell murmured, studying the students' progress charts. We've been looking to expand our evening education program, particularly in STEM subjects. Someone with his experience and proven teaching methods would be invaluable. Lisa Torres was already taking notes. The foundation could fund a pilot program. Full-time position, benefits included. She paused, calculating. We could even offer scholarship support for his children's education. If transportation is an issue, Robert Chen added, reviewing the auto repair quotes Judge Chen had gathered, my shop can handle the repairs. We have a training program for vocational students that could fix his car as part of their certification process. The meeting continued for 2 hours, ideas and offers building upon each other. By the time the last participant left, Judge Chen held a comprehensive proposal that could transform Thompson's life and expand his impact on countless students. That afternoon, she visited Sweet Dreams Learning Center, finding Thompson in his usual spot, surrounded by eager learners. She waited until the children had left before approaching him. Mr. Thompson, she began, watching his expression shift from teacher to cautious defendant. Please sit. I'm here unofficially. She placed the proposal on the table between them. The education community has noticed your work here. His hands, calloused from years of manual labor, trembled slightly as he read the offer. Full-time teaching position. Benefits. Car repairs. Educational support for his children. His eyes widened at each new detail. I don't understand, he stammered, the confident teacher momentarily lost. How did they? Sometimes, Judge Chen smiled, justice means making sure the right people know about the right person at the right time. She watched as he reached for his trusty notebook, probably to calculate what this would mean for his family's budget. Your wife, she said softly. She was a teacher too, wasn't she? Thompson's eyes misted over. Science. She always said education was about more than just facts. It was about building futures. He touched the proposal gently, as if afraid it might disappear. This would mean I could. You could teach again. Judge Chen completed his thought. Properly with resources and support. Your math magic program could reach hundreds more students. Through the window, the afternoon sun illuminated the homework room where empty chairs waited for tomorrow's eager learners. In that moment, both Thompson and Judge Chen saw not just what was, but what could be. 3 months later, Judge Chen sat in her usual place at the bench, reviewing the morning's cases. The courtroom buzzed with its familiar energy, but today felt different. Her eyes kept drifting to the clock, anticipating the afternoon's special session. At precisely 2:00 p.m., the doors opened to admit a stream of visitors. Students from Sweet Dreams Learning Center filed in quietly, led by Mrs. Rodriguez. Parents, educators, and community members filled the gallery. Finally, Marcus Thompson entered, wearing a crisp blue suit that replaced his familiar delivery uniform. This special session of the court, Judge Chen announced, her voice carrying through the now-packed courtroom, is called to recognize extraordinary contributions to education in our community. She watched Thompson shift in his chair, the same careful posture she'd observed during his traffic violation case. But today, his worn notebook had been replaced by a leather portfolio, a gift from his new colleagues of the community college. Mr. Thompson, she continued, please approach the bench. As he stood, a small movement caught her eye. In the gallery, his 3 children sat proudly watching their father. His oldest daughter held an acceptance letter from State University's engineering program. Her improved math scores had earned her a full scholarship. His younger sons wore matching ties, their usual math anxiety replaced by confident smiles. 3 months ago, this court witnessed what appeared to be a simple traffic violation. Judge Chen began, noting how several regular court staff smiled at the memory. Today, we witness the results of looking beyond surface circumstances to find the extraordinary in the ordinary. She gestured to Dean Mitchell, who approached with a framed certificate. The Evening Education Initiative, under Mr. Thompson's leadership, has already shown remarkable results. Enrollment has tripled. Student success rates have increased by 60%. His math magic method is being adapted for the college's teacher training program. Thompson accepted the certificate, his hands steady now, confidence replacing the exhaustion that had marked his previous court appearance. From the gallery came the sound of his students' enthusiastic applause, many of them wearing t-shirts with "Pizza Parts are Fraction Arts" printed across the front. But perhaps the most significant impact, Judge Chen continued, can be measured in the lives touched. She nodded to Mrs. Rodriguez, who stood to read from a thick stack of letters. Testimonials from parents, students, and fellow educators describing Thompson's influence on their lives. Emma, sitting with her friends from the Learning Center, beamed as Mrs. Rodriguez read about her transformation from a math-anxious student to a confident problem solver. Other success stories followed. Students discovering their abilities, families finding hope, a community growing stronger through education. Mr. Thompson, Judge Chen concluded, "This court originally fined you for a broken taillight. Today, we recognize you for lighting the way for countless students. Your dedication reminds us that true justice isn't just about enforcing laws, it's about recognizing and nurturing the potential in every person who comes before this bench." Thompson stepped forward to address the court, his teacher's voice strong and clear. "Your Honor, that traffic stop could have been just another setback. Instead, it became a bridge to a new beginning." He turned to face the gallery, his eyes meeting those of his children. "My wife always said that teaching isn't just a profession, it's a promise to believe in someone's future. Today, I can keep that promise properly." As the ceremony concluded and the courtroom slowly emptied, Judge Chen noticed Thompson's old delivery service badge, now pinned beside his new faculty ID, a reminder of the journey that had brought him full circle, from the defendant's spot to the center of celebration, from delivering packages to delivering dreams.